One thing I do need to mention with this episode of Classroom of the Elite is the obnoxious use of fan service. Like, we literally got a swimsuit episode already, which honestly, there was no damn point for it. I mean, at the core, we know exactly what they're doing, especially when you see the boob physics and everything else that they were focusing on for a majority of the shots. And I'm really hoping that they do something with this blonde-haired character. I forget her name. But essentially, like, this type of personality is used a lot in these types of series. The one who seems overly positive, who wants to be everyone's friend, and sometimes has a darker side that she's hiding, or she just has a troubled past that she's trying to kind of cover up with positivity. But as of right now, it's just like, the way they're framing her is just in a very sexual way, and it's not like they're even revealing anything. Like, this is what I don't understand about sexual fanservice in anime, and why so many anime fans eat it up. When you're literally seeing nothing. You're literally just seeing teasing, and people eat that shit up. Like, I even saw Crunchyroll on their, like, tweet for, like, promoting this episode. They literally showcased just multiple shots of them in their bathing suits, and I saw so many people respond like, I need to watch this now. When it shows nothing, I don't understand it. This is one of the biggest plagues to modern anime, is how they can just implement this cheap teasing fan service, and then people eat the shit up. But I will say, like, once we got past that stuff, and then we actually focus on the meat and bones of this episode, it was actually a pretty enjoyable episode. Because at the core, I think this is an interesting setting, and I think the use of basically either the class wins together or the class loses together is actually a really cool mechanic, because it's fascinating, because if you look at a lot of these kind of like real world environments, if you have a poor work ethic, then you fail and you'll lose your job. But they're taking it a step further and saying like, you need to look after everyone and you need to kind of excel together, which is an interesting mechanic, because at the core, it forces the students, if you really want to be one of the best, it forces the students to work together and learn how to work with others to excel, so you can also do better. So it's not just like you're looking out for yourself, you're focusing and making it so everyone needs to work together to excel. So you win together or you lose together. It's a pretty interesting mechanic, and I think it makes it feel a bit different than other school series where you do have like these very kind of like strict classes and it's just people are working together. And in the case of, I think it's Horikita, I think is her name, the black-haired girl, basically her mentality seems to be someone of that, just like she focuses on herself. And then briefly in the episode, she says, all right, let's take the students who are not willing to study together and I'll pretty much teach them. But she's someone who talks down to people, you know, type of personality. And ultimately she's like, all right, well, if they drop out, then it'll work better for everyone. And then the people who actually want to study and actually want to excel will do better and our class will rise, because if their class gets more points than Class C, then they'll become Class C and Class C will become Class D. So it's this really interesting mechanic of essentially it feels like it's a school meant to wean out the weak and only let the strong excel. So pretty much you want to be Class A, you want to be Class B, you want to be Class C, you never want to be Class D. And it's kind of interesting how it all works, and it seems like the reason that this very smart girl got thrown into Class D is because of how she looks at other people and how she kind of looks down on other people. She kind of puts herself in isolation, and I feel like part of the way people are scored in the school is going to be on how they interact with others. Because if you remember in episode 1, our main character, when one of the guys like kicks over that trash can, I think he goes and picks it up. I think that's going to also play a factor, like how you interact, like how good-willed you are. It's not going to just be about grades, it's going to be about your personality and how you interact with the outside world. Because I feel like this school, the entire point is to shape you into being the perfect working human being, and it's not just being skilled at your job, things like that. I think it's an interesting mechanic because you have all these different types of personalities, and I think because they're being forced that they have to work together, as you see with the end of the episode, and they all get pretty good grades, it's an interesting mechanic because you're really going to see a different type of progression than you typically see when you just have a series of a bunch of smart kids or a bunch of dumb kids, and then they just all individually work up to being better. And one thing I did get a comment on last week's review is a comment that was basically like, they don't understand how essentially you have apparently like this great school, and then you just have a bunch of slackers when top students wouldn't slack off like this. But that's literally university and colleges in a nutshell. You know, you gain entrance to a good school, and then a majority, well, maybe not a majority always, but there's a large chunk of people who will go to post-secondary education, colleges, universities, that you have to ace these tests to get into, and then they just slack off, they go to parties, they sleep in class, they ditch class. That's like the college and university lifestyle for so many, like literally. It's just insane like what people will waste their money on, so it's not surprising that they allow these kids to do this and then they get punished for it, and we can see that basically they will start kicking people out, they will wean out the weak and only let the strong excel. So it's interesting how they're doing it, and I think the actual concept of how they're kind of like basically excelling people's education is actually a pretty interesting concept. But I think my favorite part in the entire episode is Horikita's and basically her brother's kind of fight. the brother seems like complete and utter scum. I mean, you can definitely see he was going in for like a gut punch, it seems like, before our main character stepped in. And it seems like he's got some moves, which it does get mentioned earlier in the episode where she pretty much says like, hey, you actually look pretty physically fit, like what do you do? So I'm not sure exactly where he got his moves from or whatever, if we're even going to focus on that. But it's pretty nice to see a main character who's not overly popular, he's not overly really anything. He seems like a decent looking guy, he doesn't have an ugly character design, but also he's physically fit. It just is interesting to see that he has different quirks than most of these main characters in these school settings are, so it's nice to see that he's actually capable of, and he actually kind of protects her and things like that. So I thought it was nice to see that, and also just seeing like her brother is like the president and just looks down on her and things like that. So it's interesting how that's gonna work. Hopefully he never lands a hit on her and whatnot, but hopefully our main character will be there at least to smack him upside the head, or she'll smack him upside the head too. But I think at the core, if we remove the obnoxious and just the cringe-worthy stuff at the beginning of the episode, this was a decent episode. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first episode, as I found the first episode to be much more unexpected. This was a pretty solid episode. It still leaves me just as interested in watching the next episode as last week did. And really, I think this is one of the best series you probably can be watching from this summer season. Now, this series could go either way, especially because it's probably going to be 12 episodes. This is based off an ongoing source material. They probably would do a second season and then stop it from there. That's typically how these types of series go. You get 2 seasons, 12 episodes each, and then they never finish the story. But so far, I'm enjoying my time with it. I think the cast dynamic, some of it is very cliche and predictable, but then there is some aspects like the main character and just taking things that we would expect and then completely twisting it upside down. So I mean, it's an interesting series. I like the school setting. I like how the point system works, trying to rise to Class A pretty much, or at least some of the characters are. And I think it leads to some interesting things. I just really hope that this isn't going to be every single episode they're just going to implement the very cheap and just very, very stupid teasing fan service that I don't understand does anything for anyone. But hey, that's modern anime in a nutshell. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Did you enjoy the episode? Did you hate it? What did you think overall and why? Let me know, and before you leave, smack that like button to show your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.